Hi everyone, it's Malia, and today I'd like to talk to you about magazines and making magazine ephemera and using magazines to decorate your journals or your cards or whatever you're making. I have been collecting magazine clippings for probably like 150 years. I mean, I've got so much. This whole thing right here, this accordion file, it has 26 sections. I bought this at Walmart. It was about $10 or $12, and it is legal sized. So if you get one, make sure it's legal size, because you don't want to have to put a whole bunch of fold marks in images and stuff, that stay there forever, unless you're going with that kind of look and you're crinkling pages up. But I suggest the legal size over the letter size. I would not, I just got this phone mount, so let me zoom this out here. I would not recommend this particular one. If you come across any of the older ones that are chipboard, I would go with something like that before I went with this, because these plastic inserts, the dividers, are really, they are not strong. So when I'm trying to find something specific or I'm trying to take something out, they tend to fold in on each other, and it just becomes a real hassle to try and get stuff out of it. Part of that could also be because I have 45 zillion images and stuff in here. Let me just give you a quick rundown of how I organize them. I do them in sections, so you can see better here. I just got this phone mount, so it's a little trial and error. I'm very big on scenic pictures and scenery. For most of my scenery, I have two sections of each. I have regular size images, and then I have large images, which are half pages or bigger. So I keep all my water pages. That includes waterfalls, rivers, lakes, oceans, coastal pictures, stuff like that. I keep them all in here. And then I have larger ones. The same goes for mountains. I have lots of mountain pictures. The majority of these pictures came from tourist books from different states that you can sign up for free. You can Google it and find tons of stuff that you can get sent right to you. I have my section for my large mountain pictures. Structures. That is any kind of building, any kind of statue, whatever you would consider to be a structure. I have city pictures in here. In my large section, I got a lot of aerial views, a lot of whole cities. These pictures here came from an old 1970s National Geographic, which I will get into later. And then I have a lot of trees and fields. I combine those two. Again, two things I love are trees and fields. So I try and get as many pictures of those as I can. And here's my section of large. And then of course you have to have a section for miscellaneous scenery. I don't know. I like these looks of these chairs on this beach. But I wouldn't quite call this ocean, since water is definitely not the focal point. I don't know where to put this ice or this desert. I don't have a desert section, and that definitely wouldn't classify as a field. So, I have a miscellaneous section here. I keep a section for flowers and plants. I cut a lot of flower pictures out. I will probably be splitting this into small and large, because as you can see, I mean, look at how much, that is like a big stack right there. And there's tons of small stuff in between all of these big pictures, so I will probably separate this. I save all kinds of floral arrangement pictures, bouquets. This little heart that was made from leaves. You know, I see things in my head when I'm looking through these magazines. I can see things, so I cut the images out that, you know, that I plan on using. This section here is animals. I like animals. I keep everything from this advertisement of somebody holding a bag of goldfish to real photographs of fox and geese and this cute little fluffy guy right there. Isn't he great? I also keep a section for people. And that includes anything people. That's a hand of a person. You know, this comes from an article about family trees and family history. There's people in that picture. When I'm looking for people, I tend not to go for models or popular figures. I tend not to cut out pictures unless it's in the type of setting like this. You have two monks walking along a bridge in Myanmar, and they are silhouetted. They are mysterious. This girl here in this Kindle ad, you have no idea who that person is. You don't see her face. She's not advertising makeup. She's not advertising clothes. She's not some kind of fashion model. I see a lot of gorgeous stuff online where people take photographs of models and turn them into art, and I think they're beautiful. But that is just that's just not what I do. That's just not what I'm into. So when I do cut out pictures of people, and when I do find pictures of people, I try to keep it pretty hidden, you know, pretty anonymous. So that's my people section. I keep a section for art. I know this here is not art. This is just some Sherwin-Williams ad or something that's got a town built out of paint chips. I just didn't know where else to put it. But I do have pictures here, you know, painting style. All different kinds of painting. This is like graffiti, things like that. I keep this section in case because I've come across art magazines that have had some great pictures and some great sculptures and stuff. So I keep them for future projects. This here is my vintage section. That includes anything from vintage things in modern magazines to actual vintage magazines, like right here. This isn't too vintage. I think this is from the 80s. But I look in thrift stores for old magazines. And that's one thing to keep in mind too. I have a lot of church thrift stores in my area that give magazines away for free or sell them for $0.10 a piece. Absolutely pick them up. Absolutely go through the pictures. Absolutely see if there's things you need, because you can't beat that. If they're free or close to it, you can't beat it to get all kinds of ephemera and all kinds of decorations and decorative pieces. You know, plus you get a magazine like this, and the paper is already antique looking. The fonts are not like fonts you see in current magazine articles. So you can use the fonts in this the same way you use your book pages that have neat looking writing on them. Plus, you know, you have coupons for a free sample of Aleene's Tacky Glue. I mean, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. The offer is good until June 30th, 1983. You know, why not? Send it in. So, that's the vintage section. And everybody's got to have a random section. This is stuff that just didn't really fit anywhere else. You know, I've got random signs in here. Every once in a while something calls for some bling. You throw your bling in here. I mean, where am I going to put a bunch of cups of coffee? Where am I going to put a bunch of little goldfish with pretzel tails? Birdhouses. You know, you have to have a section for all the random stuff. And believe it or not, this is the section I go to most. I love my pictures in my random section. You know, so you always have to have a section that you just the catch-all for things that aren't categorized. I recently started a new section here, which is household. I like pictures of rooms. I like a lot of the layouts that these photographers for these big magazine companies use for shelving and wall art. You know, I mean, look at this. This is what I'm talking about. Look at all these vases in these crates. You know, it's beautiful. You have a ladder that goes down into a dirty looking basement. You know, and then you have things like this. That's a table setting. You know, I mean, nothing on there that I'd eat, but that's a table setting. You have these cool, colorful benches, or stools, rather. This is a ball jar filled with Christmas lights. Who can't live without a bottle of milk? HGTV magazine has got some great furniture pictures, and I love it. I love throwing in a picture of a watercolored wingback chair. I mean, how gorgeous is that? You know, and I have some of these like watercolor style paintings of pictures. In here I have doors. That HGTV magazine has tons of doors, and I think doors are great. Light bulbs, furniture, pictures and mirrors. I have vases in here. I've got pictures of vases. Lime green alarm clock. So I created this because every once in a while, if I find something that's in a color scheme for something that I'm working on, I think it's pretty cool to throw in a picture of a mirror that's reflecting a jewelry box of some sort, you know. These couple, I have a few spare sections that I have not used yet. I'm sure I'll find a use for them. And then we're on to my words. These are quotes and things that I found that I liked. In all things of nature, there is something of the marvelous. Discover freedom to have fun. The next section, I have words that I find to be funny. Have fun. Get lucky. Foxes stare in snowstorm. I mean, how random is that? You know, this is my random word section. And then this section I have here of nice fonts in case I ever have a project that calls for maybe just one letter, just one little embellishment. You know, here's some neat looking fonts, you know, stuff like this. This nice cursive style writing here. Numbers, house numbers on wood 604. I like the backing to that too. And then we're on to my big fat section of textures. This section here, I might even move to a box because this poor organizer is just chock full right here in this section. So I found videos on YouTube where, and I've spoken to women online who have made a washi tape out of textures and designs from magazine images, and I just said to myself, oh my god, I've been spending my whole life not saving these gorgeous background pictures, so I made up for it immensely. This is cloth. That's a piece of cloth right here. That is of flowers. You know, this purple looking smoke. Orange flower petals. This right here is a piece of like barn. I was just cutting them out and cutting them out like crazy. Anything that was big enough that I could get something out of. Wallpaper. Lots of wood. Lots of wooden doors, lots of old doors, lots of antique style wood. This right here. Paint splatter. Floral wallpaper. You know, the possibilities with this stuff are endless. And like I said, this I might switch to a box. And then I saved a couple sections in the back for projects that I'm considering. So I have projects number 1 and I have projects number 2. And that's just a way for me to organize projects that I'm thinking of, things that I might have coming up. You know, I'm kind of just planning for them. If it doesn't work out, I can just go and organize them through this giant mess here. I am thinking about going to a filing box with hanging folders and manila folders as opposed to this, because like I said, the plastic inserts inside are kind of flimsy, and this thing, you know, it's just hard to work out of, and it's hard to see what I have. But that's how I have it organized. And I just got this all organized about a year ago. Before, I had it all in a box. I just had a big box just full of pictures and one that was full of words. So, you know, this is a big upgrade for me. But I'm thinking about switching it to something a little more versatile for what I could use. Next, I want to show you some ways that I've been using these images. So I'm just going to change my mount. I'm sorry if it's a little shaky. I keep hitting my desk, so I could be making you dizzy. This is a nature journal I just finished. This picture here, this is from a magazine picture. This is from a magazine. I have these little flower plates here, magazine. I got this bird, magazine. This piece here with the little flowers on this wood, that's from a magazine. I did not make this a tuck spot, but this here would be the perfect size for a little tuck. Little embellishments. This is a pillow, comes from a magazine. I made envelopes out of book paper. You can absolutely make envelopes out of magazines. I took magazine images and used them as my centerfolds for all of my signatures. Let's see, this little strip here, I got a bunch of these throughout this whole book. Those come from a gardening article in a magazine that I just kept. Here's another one. I put music paper on the back of it and then used decorative scissors to cut it out. I mean, how perfect is that? Took no time at all to do. Throughout this whole thing, this here, magazine. Picture of these strawberries, magazine, I distressed it a little bit. This image here of all these birds came from a magazine. HGTV has a bunch of little doorbells that they show every once in a while. There's one of a leaf. I kept that from a magazine. This picture here, magazine, that's printed free from Pinterest. Here's another centerfold of these beautiful trees. This gorgeous decorative butterfly that came out of the HGTV magazine. This is a background for autumn, and as you can see, I got a fold line in it. Fortunately, the way I was able to line my letters up, it almost looks like the line belongs there, but that's what I'm talking about when I say to get an organization system that is a little bit bigger than the images you know you're going to be putting in there. So the possibilities are really endless, and if you get yourself into a groove looking for them, magazine, little magazine butterfly. This feather came out of a little catalog. You know, the possibilities are really endless. This here, I had a little mishap, and my reasoning was I had originally coated all of these pages in Mod Podge, a matte Mod Podge. That might work for you. Mod Podge does not work for me. I have heard from people that it is the climate where I live, because it might be a little more humid. I have heard from people that they put cornstarch or baby powder on their Mod Podge when it's still a little bit tacky, and it stops the tackiness from the paper. But whenever I use it, I seem to always get tackiness. I have not tried any of those tricks. I have not noticed if it's where I live. I have the same problem with the gloss Mod Podge, so I just stopped using it for a sealer. Now I only use it for a glue. If it works for you, then that's great. And, you know, go ahead and use it. See this right here? Had all the same thing happen there. So I Mod Podged it, and then when I realized it was sticking, I went and spray sealed it afterwards. But this here came from a Reader's Digest book. I did not have to seal this in any way because it wasn't really too glossy to begin with. Once you get into a groove looking for things, you'll find things in magazines you could find things probably on most pages of the magazine, you know. So this book here is just one example of ways that you can decorate with magazines. The project I'm currently working on ties in, what I'm going to show you ties in the use of magazine pages, plus the different sealers that I used. I did a little experiment. These ones I just did last night. I take my magazine pages and I always glue them to a backing. The reason for that, as most of you know who have played around with magazines or who have ever touched one, a lot of the pages are flimsy in magazines. They are thin, they crumple easily, they are not strong. I am a huge reinforcer when it comes to the projects I'm working on. I like whatever I'm making to be able to take a beating. So I take all my images and I glue them to book pages. Anybody who does this type of stuff, if you are into journaling, junk journaling, or mixed media, I am sure that you go through, I'm sure that you use book pages. I'm sure you tear books apart. These ones are Reader's Digest books. I like them because the older ones are already distressed looking. I like the colors of the pages. They are not white pages. You know, they're a little distressed. The downfall to that is these pages are pretty brittle. They're not like a new book. They don't fold very nicely. Sometimes they rip. Sometimes they get little fraying when you're trying to fold a pocket. Along the fold, you'll get a little bit of fraying. So I do use them for pockets, but I don't use them as much. So I tend to use them for things like this, my backings, or for dyeing, you know, if I'm just making a book page tag or a book page journaling card, I might dye them, I might not, stamp on them, whatever. I'll jelly plate them, I will paint over them. I don't waste them. I use them for something. I just glued these ones down last night. I use a glue stick. The reason for that is if you use a liquid glue with these thin magazine pages, they are likely to bubble. With a glue stick and a credit card or some sort of roller, you can roll it off, you know, and flatten everything out. Right now I'm only using a cheap glue stick. I have a bunch of school glue sticks that I had gotten on clearance a while back. They aren't the answer to the mystery of life. See, I gotta fix this corner a little. They're working for what I need, and I'm not gonna stop and go and buy fancy glue sticks right now. From what I understand, the Yes paste does the same thing as a glue stick because it's a paste as opposed to a liquid. These magazine pages are glossy. I have not sealed them in any way yet. So this is a glossy regular magazine page. I have two methods of sealing my pages. My first method is a liquid matte sealer. I bought this one. It is called Ultra Matte by Liquitex. I love it. A little bit goes a long way. I have used quite a bit. Oh, I've done quite a bit with it, and the bottle isn't even to here yet. It works great for sealing napkins also. If you're going to seal napkins, it works great for sealing napkins. This is a magazine image done with the Ultra Matte. I have given this 2 coats. The first coat, don't let it discourage you. See, I mean, there isn't a single ounce of shine at all in any of these images. It is matte. That is matte. Don't let your first coat discourage you. I suggest taking a sponge like this. This is the one I just used. Run the glue across the image with the tip of your sponge. Then take the flat part and pat it. If you do that, you do not get lines that you would normally get if you used a paintbrush or if you just ran the glue over it and called it done. If you take it and kind of dab it afterwards, you do not get those annoying lines. And that works great too for covers. When you're doing covers, absolutely do some kind of dabbing so that it does not streak the glue across the cover. The rest of these I have done with a spray sealer that is matte. This one here, this particular one is Rust-Oleum. I know Krylon makes one, and I'm a huge supporter of Krylon products. So I think that either one would work. Spray it outside. Does it stink? Yes, it does. It stinks. It is a spray sealer. Anything in a spray can is going to stink. After about 24 hours, which these have been sitting about 24 hours, there is very little odor left. And by the time I'm using them, there's going to be no odor left at all. This gives you a satin finish. This is 1 coat. Alright, the finish is satin. I like the satin finish. I know that if I sprayed a second coat on here, the finish would be matte. It would not be this matte. It would not be so matte that you can't tell the difference. You can't tell where the picture ends and the words begin. It's not going to be that matte. But it'll probably be half again as shiny as this. So I usually do the spray sealing. I like the satin look, and I like the idea that the spray sealer is fast and it dries very quickly. This dried in about 5 minutes. But as you can see, most of my images, this one's got a few wrinkles. That's a bigger one. Most of my images do not have any wrinkles at all in them because of the way that I glue and then press it out to make sure the glue distributes evenly. That's huge. Because magazine images, the paper is so thin, it can cause so many problems in the way of bubbling. So definitely do that, and make sure you reinforce. And what better way to reinforce than to use a book page and recycle. You know, you're recycling. So there is that. I know I'd put a couple of pictures. I have all this stuff sorted into piles, and I'm mixing it all up over here. Next, I want to talk to you about some magazines that I have. Magazines that I like. This one here is a local magazine. I get it from AAA. This tends to have some nice pictures in it. If nothing more, it's got some nice color. It's got, you know, I would cut those dancers out. I think that's beautiful. It looks like flowers. And I would cut these colors out here. It's got some nice Christmassy things in it. I would cut these little ornaments out. Who cares if they have letters on them, you know? I would cut that out up there. I would cut this out right here. I think that's pretty nice. So keep an eye out. I would also cut that out right there, those leaves, so you can see them. I think those are nice. I would put those on a tag. Keep an eye out for your local catalogs, your local magazines, because they do have some great pictures. And like I said, a free service to you are those tourism magazines from all the different states. I mean, at one point, I probably had 150 tourism magazines. And some of the scenery photos in them are just gorgeous. And if they're a state that's known for antiques and collectibles, you will find a lot of great antique pictures, a lot of nice old buildings, stuff like that. My aunt, this is the only thing that was paid for. My aunt subscribed me to this magazine because it does have some good technological articles. I obviously do not have any interest in the article Love in the Time of Robots. I don't have any interest of falling in love with a robot. But more so, this magazine has some great background style textures. Look at this old cabinet here. I would cut this out. I would do something with the words, I'd put something over it, but I would absolutely keep this cabinet. I would even keep this cabinet for a cover. You know, some of the things in here though, some of the ads, this article, which is the robot love, look at how great this texture is along here. I mean, isn't that perfect? And it's got it in between all the paragraphs. So, you know, any magazine you can get your hands on for free is a good magazine. A fashion magazine, they have great backgrounds. They have phenomenal, look at all this nice gate. You know, let's see, this here, it's like sand. Woman's Day on occasion has some good stuff. Better Homes and Gardens has some good stuff on occasion. Family Circle. I like a lot of the floral arrangements in those ones. Oprah Magazine, Real Simple Magazine has some great stuff. You know, keep your eye out for free magazines. See, look at this beautiful background. And here's one of the HGTV. Look at big yellow door. Beautiful ocean setting in the Caribbean. You have nice little pieces of furniture. Look at that cute little lamp. Pillows. The possibilities with HGTV are just endless. Great furniture pieces again. And if you're into scenery, outdoor photographer. If you can get your hands on some National Geographic magazines, those ones are also great. So keep your eye out for those. I see boxes of them at Goodwill all the time. Usually you can get a giant box for like $10. That's all I have to share with you for right now. My phone, for some reason, cuts my videos off at a certain time, so I'm trying, it already cut it off once, so I'm trying to rush through so that it doesn't cut me off again, and then I can screw with the settings a little bit to see what causes that. But those are some ways that I make free ephemera. I've also started taking excess magazine pages, anything that's got color, and gluing them all on paper, on other magazine pages. Shelley Lynn, I know, calls these serendipity papers. Shannon Green, I know, has called them scrap box papers. I'm thinking about die cutting them or making tags out of them, or even gessoing them so you can still see the colors, but they're a little muted, you know, to make journaling cards. The possibilities you have with magazine pages are endless. You can jelly print on them. It doesn't come out as nice because of the gloss, but you can jelly print. You can paint them and stamp on them and stencil them to make nice painted papers for backgrounds and stuff. Don't throw away your magazines. You don't have to keep 425,000 of them, but keep a stack so that you always have something to work with that is free and you're recycling, and you know, you're having fun and you're creating art at the same time. Your feedback is always appreciated. Thank you very much for watching. This is my first video like this, so hopefully I will have more for you in the future. Thanks.